So I grew up in Toronto. I come from a home with a big family, big extended family. My mom was a teenage mom, and she was single for a good chunk of her time. She actually had a bit of physical abuse in her life, and our family kind of motto is really just to suck it up and just make do. So there are a lot of very physically strong women. What I'm learning is mentally strong women in our family, and we all just kind of deal with it. We don't share, we don't talk often, or we didn't in the past. So we just kind of deal with it. I was an A student. I played varsity volleyball, did really well. Didn't have a lot of friends, moved around a lot. I was always the new kid in school, so I liked to fly under the radar. Didn't like to make any big waves, didn't like to share my opinion. And that started to transition into my relationships. So I would find boyfriends or have boyfriends for long periods of time, mostly because I didn't want to, I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to feel like I wasn't good enough or able to be in a relationship or receive love, I guess. So it was nice and somebody loved me. My family loved me. I'm an only child. We just showed it a little differently, I guess. So often I wouldn't excel. I would always do okay, but I would never excel. So I didn't see a lot of value in my ideas. I didn't see a lot of value in what I offered people. I mean, it's just kind of what we do, right? You work 2 jobs, you excel in school, you play sports, you get an after-school job, you pay your own way, you suck it up and you make do. So I didn't really see a lot of value in what I brought to a relationship. I was married, good husband, great provider. We kind of just broke our relationship. I didn't think that I was being valued after having 2 children. I really felt underappreciated, and eventually decided to leave. When I did leave, he told me that when I wanted to end our marriage, he told me to get out. I took our 2 children and he locked us out, told me that my children were obviously welcome at his place, but I was not. I was no longer a part of his family. He was disgraced that I had the same name as he did. He wanted nothing to do with me. We couldn't speak in person. We couldn't talk over the phone. I wasn't allowed on his property. So that kind of took a toll. I felt horrible for giving up on a marriage, but I thought maybe it was the best idea for me. I then went on to meet somebody who I thought was wonderful and enlightening and was going to sort of help me see the world a different way. So I met and started dating this person soon after my marriage ended. And it turned out that this person had a serious substance abuse problem. It wasn't something I was familiar with in my life. I genuinely thought that he was a good person. I think that most people are good people, and I don't feel like I can fix the world, but I think that every person has some good in them somewhere. So maybe if they come from a bad place or they haven't had a great upbringing, somebody should be there to show them the way. And I thought that I was that person for him. So over the course of our relationship, keeping in mind at this point, I was a professional with a solid career. I was coming out of a marriage with some sense of financial security. I was now a single mom of 2 young children. They were not quite in junior kindergarten at the time. And the this person also had a child as well who was a little bit older than mine. So I was really excited to have a blended family and to have a partner in life. But I learned that he had a drug problem. I learned that because he actually found out how bad it was after he took my bank card, drained my bank account. He would lock himself upstairs in the bedroom, and I would have all 3 children downstairs for hours on end while he indulged. There also were moments when the children were either sleeping or eventually with their own parents, or with, when my children were with my parents, where there would be hours of sexual abuse. And it got to the point in our relationship where I actually thought it was easier if I would just die. I've never been a super confident person, but I've never had issues of such low self-esteem that I wanted to end my life. And in this relationship, I got to that point. So I let him, in his good moments, tell me how wonderful I was to him, and I heard it. And then when he would get angry, he would threaten to hurt my children, or he would threaten to hurt me. He would tell me I didn't know how to have a conversation. I didn't know how to talk to people, keeping in mind I communicated with people for a living. I was teaching others, and that was what I did. That was how I provided. He was in and out of jobs, so he lost jobs often. So I ended up financially supporting him, his child. And then there were times where he would get violent with me, which has never happened to me before in my life. I never, ever in a million years thought that somebody would physically put their hands on me or that I would even let it happen. I thought if my family ever found out about this, they would absolutely just disown me for being such a complete fool. And that made me feel even worse about myself. I mean, how could I be so blind? I'm like, I don't understand how that's even a real thing. And I stuck it out. I stuck it out because he's got to be a good person. I can't be this wrong about somebody. There's no possible way that I am that wrong in my judgment. It can't be. There's got to be something wrong with me. It eventually got, my mom actually stopped talking to me. We never really had a close relationship, but she was a good parent. And she just stopped talking to me. We couldn't talk. I couldn't go there. She really hated this guy so much that one day I showed up at my ex's house to pick them up for the weekend, and she was already there, and she was taking my children out of his house so I couldn't have them, and that they wouldn't be with me for the weekend and anywhere around him. And I was so hurt that she didn't trust that I could protect my own kids. And I was too blind to see how bad it was. And after a while, I somehow managed to tell my friends about this. And for the first time in my life, I had women who heard me. They believed me. They knew that I was a good mother. They knew that I was in a bad way. And they allowed me to cry and to share and to hide out on days when I couldn't be around him. They offered their home to me. They offered their home to my children. And eventually, I kicked him out. A couple times I allowed him to come back in, and the last straw was when he had a full out rage moment in front of my children. Um, he broke things. He, tried to break down our door and come back into the house. My kids were still very young, and eventually, I couldn't have him there. I was afraid he was either going to hurt me in front of them, and I knew that no matter what, I could not let my children grow up without me. That was a no-win situation, and that wasn't going to happen. And from that point on, I just decided that I was in a place where I needed to be honest with myself and allow myself to be vulnerable again with my family. And I reached out to my mom and I told her what happened. I told her that he was physical with us. I told her about my bank account. I told her I couldn't pay my bills. I couldn't pay my rent. I had no money. I had no room on my credit cards. So I didn't have enough money to buy groceries. Keeping in mind I was still a professional working full time. And I had no means to support my children. And it was the probably hardest thing I've ever had to do, was just accept that I let it get this far. I let it get this far, but that I knew that I could be better and that I knew I could make this okay. And I kind of just owned it. And I really just looked at my kids and knew that this was for them. And I needed to be better for them. I needed to be a strong woman for my boys. There's no way that I'm going to let them suffer because of my misjudgment. So with that, I gave into somebody else. I allowed my parents to take care of me. Nobody takes care of me. I've been doing it my own for a very long time. I moved out when I was 17. I've been working since I was 15. I've never been unemployed, but I couldn't seem to get my stuff together. So I really just kind of gave into this, and it took a lot of therapy. It took a lot of family time, and it took a lot of acceptance. I admitted to my boy's father what had happened, which I was ashamed of. So I had to admit that. I admitted to my employer what was going on, and they let me take some time off with pay, which was nice, but they let me take some time off just to kind of gather my thoughts, get myself together. And I started to kind of put my life back together and build my self-esteem. I never really thought I was good enough at my current job. Didn't think that my education was ever good enough, considering I work with people who have, masters and PhDs. They've got law degrees. I mean, these people are brilliant, and who am I, right? I'm nobody. But I allowed myself to listen to other people and truly hear when they told me that I was worthy of my position in a company, my seat at a boardroom table, that I was a great parent. That was huge. That was huge. People would compliment me on how well behaved my children were, how pleasant they were to be around, how loving they were. And I learned that that was a direct result of my interaction with them, my involvement in their life. And I built off of that. I am now enrolled in university courses to excel my current skill set. I oversee an entire training department for our Canadian office. I sit in front of, rooms of managing partners, directors, CEOs, CFOs, and they listen to me because I've earned my place. I've earned my place. I've earned my place by accepting what I know. I accept what I don't know, and I'm willing to learn and to listen, and they appreciate that vulnerability. And I've learned through nothing else that my support system is what got me through this. My support system wasn't just my family, but my friends, and just allowing people in and allowing people to hear what I had to say, and to just not hide, in the shadows, because nothing ever gets fixed if you don't talk about it. I talk to my boys about that all the time. I have a lot of superpowers as a mom. One of them should be mind reading, but the older they get, the more that power fades. So I can't fix something if we don't talk about it, and nobody can help me if I don't tell them what's going on. So, I've gotten to a place where I actually have learned that I'm allowed to accept love. I've learned that it's okay to do things on my own. I know that I can do them on my own, but I don't have to do them on my own. And I think for me, the best part about this whole process has just been realizing that I am a stronger woman for sharing my story. I am a stronger woman for sharing my weaknesses and my vulnerability. And just because I can do something doesn't mean that I should. Just because I can tolerate abuse does not mean that I should. It means that I should accept that I recognize that it is abuse, and to do what's right by me and by my family, because I cannot give from an empty cup. So I am now taking care of myself. I am taking care of my children, and they in turn are taking care of me. I've always worked downtown. I've worked for a big chunk of my life. I've worked downtown in a corporate space, and had a busy commute and a busy life. Lots of mom responsibilities, lots of work responsibilities, lots of extracurriculars. And the pandemic has allowed me to refocus my energy on myself and my family and my dog, apparently. But it's allowed me to refocus my energy. I forced myself to take breaks during the day. I've started running. I was never much of a runner. Even though I was athletic, never much of a runner, could not run from here to the corner without being winded. So I started walking every day, started to push myself a little bit more and, trust my body. I go for walks. I cook more at home, which is great. I spend a lot more time with my children, especially with their online learning. I actually have a better understanding of how they learn, what they enjoy, what they struggle with. I am having a hard time most days with being alone. So it's difficult not having somebody physically in the house, adult company to keep me feeling kind of normal and engaged. Often I text a lot and have Zoom meetings all day, but sometimes I kind of just take it right back to the basics. I walk my dogs, wave to the neighbors. I cry in the shower a lot. And I let myself have those moments. I just kind of own it. And I used to hide from my children when I would be upset or sad. And what I realized is that I wasn't giving them an opportunity to learn how to share those feelings and work through those feelings. So now if if I need to cry and I'm in the middle of the kitchen, I cry in the middle of the kitchen. And they'll cry with me or hug me, or we hug each other. But I allow them to see the struggle. I think it's fair. And they've also found that by showing them the struggle that I have, they understand that it's okay. So it's okay for them to be struggling with, not seeing their friends or going to school or playing sports like they used to, or being involved in the clubs that they used to be involved in. It's okay if it hurts, and it's okay that it sucks, because we're going to get through it together, and we're all experiencing the same seclusion. And I think that they've definitely grown a lot over the last 10 months. So I'm really proud of them. I would say, above all else, trust your gut. As women, we are magical, mystical, powerful human beings. We have the ability to create life. We are intuitive. We are in touch with the universe, whether you feel it some days or not. And there are women who are willing to support you, whether you know them or you don't. Women are out there, and they are willing to help you. And you do not have to do this on your own. You are valuable. You are worth something. You do deserve to be here. And there is love out in the world for you, and it will find you. Stay true to yourself, and don't let anybody take that away from you. It's easy to say it should have never happened to me, or this is an embarrassment. There is no shame in being taken advantage of. There is no shame in loving somebody who couldn't love you the right way. There's no shame in any of it. So tell your story and trust that you'll be able to come out of this alive and better, and you will. You really will. It gets better. It always gets better. You just need to kind of just give it a little push, and just be willing to tell somebody, anybody, tell somebody, because there is somebody who's willing to listen. And it's going to be a struggle for a little while, but it's worth it. It is the best feeling to know that you came out on the other end a much better person, and nobody can take that away from you. So yeah, that's that was a lot. That felt like a therapy session.